Hi guys, this is Lori from the Culpeper County Library here again for Book Start Saturday. I've got a book to share with you guys today. It's called World in Between, based on a true refugee story. The author's name is Kenan Trebinc evic, and he is originally from Yugoslavia. This is a true story. It's in fiction because some names and dates and events have been changed and condensed to make it an easier read, but it's based on his life in middle school. So it's tween fiction. It's historical fiction because it took place in the 90s. It's also realistic fiction, and it's a great survival story. So here is a little bit about the book. Kenan is a regular middle school boy. He's in 7th grade at the start of the book. He lives with his parents in an apartment in Bosnia. Dad owns a gym, mom's an office worker, and his older brother is a high schooler. Pretty regular life. He goes to school, has a group of friends. There's someone he has a crush on. He likes to draw. He really likes soccer, which they call football in the book. And, he's just kind of living his life. Everything's going well. So his family is Muslim, but they're not actively involved in the religion. He knows a little bit about it. I think they celebrate some of the holidays, but that's about it. All of a sudden, everything starts getting really chaotic because of the situation in Bosnia, which, if you don't know much about that time period, the Balkan Wars really tore that area apart. And where Kenan grew up was originally Yugoslavia. When things start getting out of hand and people start dividing by religion, Kenan, the main character's kind of confused because religion hasn't been a huge part of his life. And he's asked at one point early on in the book if he's Muslim, and his answer is, "My country is Yugoslavia. I'm from the Bosnian Republic. My religion is Muslim." So you can see he identifies with 3 different cultures, and so the division all of a sudden is very confusing to him. He's not sure what to make of it. All of a sudden, friends who maybe were Catholics are not treating the Muslims well. There's a lot of racial and religious prejudice going on. Kenan's family decides that they are going to try to make it through this time. They're not really sure how bad the war is going to get, if they can stay. They see some of their friends and neighbors leaving the city, but they're not really sure if that's necessary, although the situation keeps getting worse, and you can see kind of how they hesitate whether to go, whether to stay, where to go. Eventually, there are soldiers in the street. Food's running low. Electricity is on. Electricity is off. It's a tough situation. The violence starts getting worse, and friends turn into enemies. Kenan starts getting harassed. He gets a gun pulled on him, and the family decides they need to leave. So really their only option is to head to Vienna, Austria, where they have some relatives. They know it's going to be tight quarters, and they're not sure what to expect, and it's a harrowing journey to get there, but they make it. It's not really what they expected. They're in a very cramped apartment. They're not able to get jobs. They're living on charity. It's tough. So in the end, and this is kind of the main premise of the story, is the family decides they need to come to the United States as refugees. So they call in basically all the favors that they have, sell jewelry, wedding rings, get their passports, get their flight, and make plans to come to the U.S. So Kenan, again, being a middle schooler, he's hoping he can go home, missing his friends, just wants his life back to normal. But what none of the family knows English, but what they do know a little bit about is, the big cities, New York, Los Angeles, and he thinks that's where they're headed. But as refugees, they have to go where they can get help. So they end up in a small town in Connecticut, pretty rural, pretty different from what they're used to. They meet some good people along the way. They meet some that take advantage of them, and it's a tough situation. They have to make their way in an unfamiliar environment, and it's not easy to navigate the new situation. Overall, though, I felt like even though there are some frustrating parts and some sad parts, the story is pretty inspiring. It is the story of, it's based on the author's real life experience as a refugee, and it's from the perspective of a regular middle school kid who's dealing with a whole new life. He starts to make his way in school, and I don't want to give away too much of the story, but he finds a place for himself, and his family is able to kind of settle in. The author himself, Kenan Trebinc evic, ended up graduating from college in the U.S. He's an American citizen now, and he's a writer. So he's written for magazines, newspapers. He'd written, I believe, one book before this, and then this is, his story. So I thought this was a pretty fast read. There actually was a lot of action. There is some violence in terms of like soldiers harassing the family and that kind of thing. Not too much. It made me think a lot about that time period and refugees in general and people who are caught up in that kind of situation, which is not easy. It also showed how there's good and bad everywhere, and life is complicated. But in the end, I felt pretty hopeful. It's a great story. I think it was well written and relatable, as I said. I like real life stories, and this one really kind of stayed with me. So if you get a chance, come check it out. We've got this book, Tween fiction, and a lot of other new books in the library. We are looking forward to seeing you. All right, thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.